Good morning and welcome to the daily chapter reading of How to Know God by Deepak Chopra. How do I fit in a cope? On stage one, there is no indication that humans have a favored place in the cosmos. On the contrary, natural forces are blind and their power is beyond our control. Recently, I saw a news report about a small town in Arkansas flattened by a tornado that struck in the middle of the night. Those who had survived were awakened by a deafening roar in the darkness and had the presence of mind to run into their basements. As they surveyed the wreckage of their lives, the dazed survivors mumbled the same response: "I'm alive only by the grace of God." They did not consider nor express out loud that the same God might have sent the storm. In crisis, people see ways to cope, and in stage one, God is a coping mechanism. This holds true wherever survival is in peril. In the worst ghetto areas ravaged by drugs and street crime, one finds the most intense faith. Horrible situations stretch our coping skills beyond their limits. The random death of children gunned down in school would be an example, and to escape complete despair, people will project beyond hopelessness, finding solace in a God who wants to protect them. What is the nature of good and evil? Good is safety, comfort, food, shelter, and family. Evil is physical threat and abandonment. An absolute standard of good and evil is something many people crave, particularly at a time when values seem to be crumbling. In stage one, good and evil seem to be very clear. Good derives from being safe, evil derives from being in danger. A good life has physical rewards: food, clothing, shelter, and a loving family, while if you lead a bad life, you are left alone and abandoned, prey to physical danger. But is the picture really so clear? Once again, the family drama must be taken into account. Social workers are well aware that abused children have a strange desire to defend their parents. Even after years of beatings and emotional cruelty, it can be clearly impossible to get them to testify to the abuse. Their need for a protector is too strong. One could say that love and cruelty are so interwoven that the psyche can't separate them. If you try to remove the child from the abusive environment, he is deeply afraid that you are snatching away his source of love. This confusion doesn't end with adulthood. The old brain has an overriding need for security, which is why so many abused wives defend their husbands and return to them. Good and evil become hopelessly confused. The God of stage one is just as ambiguous. 20 years ago, I read a poignant fable about a town that was perfect. Everyone in it was healthy and happy, and the sun always shone on their doorsteps. The only mystery in the town was that every day a few people walked away, silently and giving no explanation. No one could figure out why this was happening, yet the phenomenon didn't end. We finally discover that a single child has been trapped by his parents in the basement where he is tortured out of sight. Those who walk away know this secret, and for them perfection has come to an end. The vast majority don't know, or if they do, turn their heads the other way. Fables can be read in many ways, but this one says something about our stage one God. Even if he is worshipped as a benign parent, one who never inflicted guilt upon us, his goodness is tainted by suffering. A father who provides with great love and generosity would be considered a good father, but not if he tortures one child. Anyone who considers himself a child of God has to consider this problem. Much of the time, as in the fable, it is papered over. The need for security is too great, and in addition, there is only so much we can cope with at any one time. How do I find God? Through fear and loving devotion. If the God of stage one is double-edged, providing with one hand and punishing with the other, then he cannot be known only one way. Fear and love both come into play. For every biblical injunction to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy strength, and all thy soul, there is a counterbalance. The injunction to fear the Lord is expressly stated in all faiths, even the faiths supposedly based on love. Jesus speaks quite openly about the evildoers who will be cast out with wailing and gnashing of teeth. What this means in a deeper sense is that ambivalence is discouraged. Peace of the sort rules in a family where the children are told simply to love their parents, but also feel secret anger, hatred, and jealousy toward them. The official emotion is only positive. An outsider may call this false peace, but to the insider it works. But has negativity really gone away? It takes a great deal of growing up before one can live with ambivalence and its constant blending of dark and light, love and hate. This is the road not taken in stage 1. A friend of mine told me a touching story of the day he grew up as he saw it. He was a protected, even coddled child whose parents were very private. He never saw them disagree. They were careful to draw the boundary between what the adults in the family discussed between themselves and what they told the children. This is psychologically healthy, and my friend remembers an almost idyllic childhood free of anxiety and conflict. Then one day, when he was about 10, he woke up late one night to hear loud noises from downstairs. He felt a chill of fear, certain that some crime was taking place. After a moment, he realized that his parents were having a loud argument. In great consternation, he jumped up and ran downstairs. When he entered the kitchen, he saw the two of them confronting each other. "Don't you lay a hand on her or I'll kill you," he shouted, rushing at his father. His parents were bewildered and did everything they could to calm the boy down. There had been no violence, only an angry disagreement. But even though he eventually grasped the situation, something deep had changed. He no longer could believe in a perfect world. The mixture of love and anger, peace and violence that we all have to live with had dawned on him. In place of certainty, there was now ambiguity. People he once trusted completely had showed that they possessed a darker side. By implication, the same holds true for each of us and by extension for God. Everyone must face this conflict, but we resolve it in different ways. Some children try to preserve innocence by denying that its opposite exists. They turn into idealists and wishful thinkers. They show a strong streak of denial when anything negative takes place and will remain anxious until the situation turns positive again. Other children take sides, assigning all the anxiety-provoking traits to a bad parent, while labeling the other as always good. Both of these tactics fall under the category of coping mechanisms. Therefore, it comes as no surprise to find how much they invade religious belief in stage 1, which is all about coping. The good parent, bad parent solution takes the form of a cosmic battle between God and Satan. There is abundant proof in the Old Testament that Jehovah is willful and cruel enough to assume the role of bad parent by himself. Even a man of titanic righteousness like Moses is deprived in the end of being able to enter the promised land. No amount of fear and love, however you mix them, is enough to satisfy this God. His capriciousness knows no bounds. However, if this portrayal is unacceptable, there must be an adversary, the literal meaning of Satan's name, to take the blame away from God. Satan appears in the Old Testament as tempter, deceiver, stealer of souls, and the fallen angel Lucifer, who through pride tried to usurp God's authority and had to be cast down to hell. You could say that he is the light gone bad, but never once is he described as an aspect of God. The division between the two makes for a much simpler story, as it does for a child who has decided that one parent must be the good one and the other bad. The other coping strategy, which involves denying the negative and seeking always to be positive, is just as common in religion. A lot of harm has to be overlooked to make God totally benign, yet people manage to do so. In the family drama, if there is more than one child, interpretations become fixed. One child will be absolutely sure that no abuse or conflict was ever present, while another will be just as certain that it was pervasive. The power of interpretation is linked to consciousness. Things can't exist if you are not conscious of them, no matter how real they may be to others. In religious terms, some believers are content to love God and fear Him at the same time. This duality in no way involves any condemnation of the deity. He is still perfect, meaning that He is always right, because those He punishes must be wrong. In this case, faith depends on a value system that is preordained. If some ill befalls me, I must have committed a sin, even if I didn't have any awareness of it. My task is to look deep enough until I find the flaw inside myself, and then I will see the perfect judgment God has rendered. To someone outside the system, however, it appears that an abused child is figuring out through convoluted logic how to make himself wrong so that the cruel parent remains right. In stage 1, God has to be right. If He isn't, the world becomes too dangerous to live in. What's my life challenge? To survive, protect, and maintain. Every stage of God implies a life challenge, which can be expressed in terms of highest aspiration. God exists to inspire us, and we express this through the aspirations we set for ourselves. An aspiration is the limit of the possible. In stage 1, the limit is set by physical circumstances. If you are surrounded by threats, to survive is a high aspiration. This would be true in a shipwreck, a war, a famine, or an abusive family. However, each stage of God must give scope to the whole range of human abilities. Even in the worst situations, a person aspires to do more than cope. You might think that the next step would be escape. In stage 1, however, escape is blocked by the reality principle. A child can't escape his family, just as famine victims often can't escape drought. So the mind turns instead to imitating God, and since God is a protector, we try to protect the most valuable things in life. Protectors take many forms. Some are policemen protecting the law, firemen protecting safety, social workers protecting the helpless. In other words, stage 1 is the most social of all the 7 worlds we will examine. Here one learns to be responsible and caring. The reward for learning to protect others is that in return they give you their love and respect. Notice how furious the police become if they are taunted by the very people they are sworn to defend. This occurs in riots, political demonstrations, and racially divided neighborhoods. The protector craves respect. He is also inflexible about rules and laws. Being a guardian, he sees danger everywhere. Therefore, he is motivated to keep people in line for their own good. This is essentially a parental feeling, and you will find that police officers can be fatherly in both the good and bad sense. They may be quick to forgive offenses where the perpetrator acts humbled and chastised, but they are also prone to dispensing rough justice when a bad guy shows no remorse. Outright defiance is the worst response to a protector, who then feels completely justified in holding you to the letter of the law, just as Jehovah felt justified in punishing infractions of his law. Divine authority could be very cruel even to the chosen people, but those outside the law, meaning anyone with different religion, deserve no mercy. What is my greatest strength? Courage. What is my biggest hurdle? Fear of loss, abandonment.